You're the only millionaire in your friend group. Nobody knows. Not the friend who complains about money every Friday and somehow always ends the month wondering where it all went. Not the friend chasing promotions like they're escape routes. Not the friend who thinks rich people are a completely different species. You've been a millionaire for almost 3 years. Nobody congratulated you. Nobody noticed. Nobody even suspected it. You're not hiding anything. You just stopped talking about money a long time ago. The strange part isn't that nobody knows. The strange part is how it happened. Because if you told people the truth, most of them would find it disappointingly boring. No lottery ticket, no startup exit, no crypto miracle, no lucky break. Just a series of small decisions that looked completely insignificant while they were happening. A tiny asset that made about $120 a month. Then another. Then another. Nothing that would have impressed anyone sitting across from you at dinner, and that's exactly why it worked. Because while everyone else was paying attention to income, you quietly became obsessed with ownership, and once you see the difference, it's almost impossible to unsee it. Friday night, same booth. Every Friday, the four of you sit in the same booth talking about money, promotions, inflation, debt, mortgage payments. The conversation changes slightly from week to week, but the conclusion is usually the same. Someone always believes the next raise will solve everything. This Friday is no different. One friend celebrates a promotion. Another complains about how expensive everything has become. Then someone laughs and says, "If I could just make another 20 grand a year, everything would be different." Everyone nods. 3 years ago, you would have nodded too. Because for most of your 20s, you believed the same thing they did, that earning more was the answer. That financial freedom was hiding inside a bigger paycheck. Today you see it differently, not because you're smarter, not because you worked harder, because somewhere along the way, you stopped asking, "How much can I earn?" and started asking, "What can I own?" The shift sounds small, but it changed everything, and it started on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The first ownership moment. 8 years earlier, your lunch break looked exactly like everyone else's. You worked in a mid-sized office building downtown. Nothing special, nothing glamorous. The kind of job where most people spent Monday waiting for Friday, and Friday worrying about Monday. Every afternoon around 12:15, you joined the same line at a small coffee kiosk in the lobby. The place was always busy. Office workers, delivery drivers, people from neighboring buildings. The line stretched out the door almost every day. For months, you never thought much about it. You bought your coffee, waited your turn, went back upstairs. Then one Tuesday, something small happened. The employee making drinks stepped away for a minute. The line stopped moving. People started checking their watches. A few walked away. And for some reason, instead of being annoyed, you found yourself staring at the register. Not the coffee, not the customers, the register. You started wondering how much money that little kiosk actually made. The thought followed you back to your desk, then home, then into the evening. After dinner, you opened your laptop. At first, it was simple curiosity. You looked up average coffee shop revenue, then margins, then lease costs, then owner income. One search became 10, 10 became 20. Before you knew it, 2 hours had disappeared. What surprised you wasn't how much money a successful coffee kiosk could generate. It was the realization that the owner didn't have to personally sell every cup. The business was serving people while the owner focused on improving the system. For the first time, you saw the difference between working inside something and owning something. Most people walk into a coffee shop and see coffee. You started seeing cash flow. Most people saw customers. You started seeing a system, and once that thought entered your head, it never really left. Because the question was no longer, "How much can I earn?" The question became, "What can I own?" That question changed everything. The first cash flow asset. You didn't quit your job. You didn't start a company. You didn't do anything dramatic. In fact, if someone had looked at your life 6 months later, they probably wouldn't have noticed any difference at all. You simply started investing every month. Nothing exciting, no stock picking, no hot tips, no complicated strategy. Just boring dividend ETFs, the kind nobody talks about at parties. The first dividend payment arrived on a Thursday afternoon, $11. That's it, $11. You remember staring at the notification for longer than you'd like to admit. Not because $11 mattered. It didn't. Your coworker spent more than that on lunch. A friend probably spent twice that on drinks that weekend. The amount wasn't impressive. The idea was. That $11 arrived whether you worked that afternoon or not. Nobody congratulated you. Nobody knew it happened. You didn't tell anyone. There wasn't really anything to tell. Guys, my investments made $11 this month. Nobody would care. Honestly, neither did you. What interested you was what the $11 proved. The architecture worked. The next month it was $14, then $17, then $23. Tiny numbers, almost laughably small. But every payment felt like evidence. Evidence that money could be generated by ownership instead of effort alone. So while your friends tracked raises and bonuses, you tracked something different. Assets, cash flow, systems. Not because they were making you rich, not yet, because they were teaching you how wealth actually worked, and that lesson turned out to be worth far more than the money itself. Everyone else chases income. The years pass quietly. Your friends keep doing what most people do. One lands a promotion and immediately upgrades his truck. Another moves into a larger apartment because the raise finally makes it possible. The third starts measuring progress by salary milestones. 60,000, 80,000, 100,000. Every increase feels important. And to be fair, it is. Income matters. But you begin noticing something. Every raise improves their lifestyle. Very few improve their ownership. So while they're celebrating bigger paychecks, you're using extra cash for something less visible. Assets. Not because you're trying to become rich, because you're becoming curious about how money behaves when it's left alone. The difference is small at first, almost invisible, then it starts compounding. You see asset number 2, the small website. 2 years later, you buy something most people would ignore, a tiny niche website, an outdoor gear blog owned by someone who no longer wants to run it. The purchase price is just under $4,000. At the time, the site generates around $120 a month through ads and affiliate links. Nothing impressive. In fact, one friend spends more than that each month on streaming subscriptions he barely uses. But that's not what interests you. The website keeps earning while you sleep, while you're at work, while you're having dinner, while you're doing absolutely nothing. Some months the income drops, some months it rises, but the principle remains. People visit, the site serves them, cash flow arrives. The amount isn't life-changing, the lesson is. For the second time, you experience money arriving without directly trading hours for it. And once again, the architecture proves itself. The website won't make you wealthy, but it changes the way you see wealth. Because now you're no longer asking, how much can I earn? You're asking, how many systems can earn without me? And that question starts leading you somewhere your friends don't even realize exists yet. Asset number 3, the parking space. Around the same time, your friends start talking about cars more than investments, monthly payments, insurance, fuel costs, maintenance. One friend buys a new truck, another upgrades to a luxury SUV after getting a raise. Meanwhile, you spend nearly the same amount of money on something nobody notices. A parking space, not exciting, not impressive, just a single parking space in a busy downtown area. The income starts small but consistent. Every month, someone pays to use a space you own. What surprises you isn't the money. It's the simplicity. People don't stop needing places to park because the economy slows down. They don't stop driving because interest rates change. The need remains. For the first time, you begin looking at everyday problems differently, not as inconveniences, as opportunities for ownership. The first time you notice something different. A few years later, you're back at the same restaurant with the same friends. The bill arrives. Nobody says anything unusual. The conversation continues. But you notice something. You didn't look at the total. You didn't mentally calculate your bank balance. You didn't wonder how close payday was. The realization catches you off guard, not because you're wealthy, because money no longer feels fragile. Years earlier, every unexpected expense felt personal. A car repair, a medical bill, a broken appliance. Each one had the power to ruin a month. Now they don't. Not because your lifestyle changed, because your margin changed. And that's when you understand something most people miss. Wealth changes pressure long before it changes appearance. The group trip. That summer, the 4 of you rent a cabin for a weekend. Nothing fancy, just a few old friends escaping work for a couple of days. The first night, everyone sits around a fire talking about life. One friend worries about layoffs at his company. Another talks about rising mortgage payments. The third admits he's been feeling pressure ever since his divorce. The conversation keeps returning to money, not greed, stress. the kind of stress that quietly follows people everywhere. You listen more than you talk, because for the first time, you realize something. Your financial life has started moving differently than theirs. Not better, differently. The strange thing is, nobody notices. To them, you're still the same person you've always been, and in most ways, they're right. You simply stopped depending on one source of income years ago. They don't know that, and you never feel the need to explain it. Asset number 4, self-storage. A few months after the trip, another opportunity appears. A small self-storage partnership, nothing glamorous, rows of metal doors in a quiet part of town, the kind of business most people drive past without thinking about. You almost ignore it, then you start paying attention. People move, people downsize, people inherit things, people run out of space. The demand never really disappears. The more you study it, the more familiar it feels, just like the coffee kiosk, just like the website, just like the parking space. Another ordinary problem, another simple solution, another asset generating cash flow without needing constant attention. By now a pattern is becoming obvious. The businesses themselves aren't important. The principle is, you're no longer collecting investments, you're collecting systems, and every new system buys a little more freedom than the one before it. The $1 million moment. The moment arrives on an ordinary Wednesday. Not during a celebration, not after a big deal, not after some life-changing event. You're sitting at your desk reviewing a portfolio summary when you notice a number you've never seen before. Your net worth has crossed $1 million. You read it twice, not because it's unbelievable, because it feels strangely normal. You thought this moment would feel different. You imagined excitement, relief, some sense of arrival. Instead, you close the laptop and continue with your day. The world doesn't change. Your phone doesn't ring. Nobody congratulates you. The number is bigger, but the feeling is familiar. It's the same feeling you had when that first dividend payment arrived years ago. The architecture is working. That's all. What wealth revealed. As the years pass, you start noticing patterns. Not in markets, in people. One friend is always chasing recognition. Every promotion matters because it proves something. Another is constantly searching for security. No amount ever feels quite enough. The third wants approval. He wants people to notice that he's doing well, and then you notice something uncomfortable. Wealth didn't make you different. It simply revealed what was already there. You were never chasing status. You were chasing freedom. Freedom to make decisions without fear. Freedom to say no. Freedom to walk away. The money didn't create that desire. It exposed it. And once you see that, a lot of things start making sense. Asset number 5, the cleaning company. A year later, a retiring owner decides to sell his commercial cleaning business. It's not the kind of opportunity people brag about online. No exciting headlines, no viral success story, just contracts, office buildings, schools, medical offices, recurring clients who need the same service month after month. Most investors overlook businesses like this. You don't, because by now you've learned something important. Attention and opportunity rarely live in the same place. The business isn't flashy, it's dependable, and dependable has become your favorite word. You acquire the company, improve a few systems, hire a manager, then let the business do what it has done for years, serve customers, generate cash flow, solve an ordinary problem, just like every asset before it. Why nobody knows? People often assume wealthy individuals are hiding something. That isn't really true. At least not for you. You never made a conscious decision to keep your finances secret. You simply stopped performing success. No luxury watches, no expensive cars, no need to prove anything. The funny thing about wealth is that the more visible it becomes, the more attention it attracts. Questions appear, expectations appear, assumptions appear. You watched it happen to other people, so you chose a different path. You kept driving practical vehicles. You kept living below your means. You kept your life simple. Not because simplicity makes you wealthy, because wealth made simplicity easier, and over time, something unexpected happened. The less interested you became in looking successful, the more successful you actually became. The friend in trouble. 3 months later, Marcus calls on a Wednesday evening. At first, the conversation sounds normal. Work, life, the usual things. Then you hear it. That slight hesitation people have when they're carrying something heavy. His food business hasn't been doing well, the divorce cost more than he expected, debt has started piling up. For the first time in years, he sounds tired, not physically, financially, the kind of tired that follows you into every decision. He tells you he's considering a loan, maybe another credit card, maybe selling equipment. You listen, and for a moment, you realize something. You could solve this problem today, a single transfer, a few clicks. The amount wouldn't change your life at all, but then you remember something you've learned over the years. Money is powerful, but structure is more powerful. So instead of writing a check, you ask questions. You review his numbers, his expenses, his margins, his contracts, and slowly a different picture emerges. The business isn't broken, the structure is. A few bad agreements, a few expensive decisions, a few problems hiding behind larger problems. Over the next month, you help him reorganize everything, not as an investor, as a friend. The result isn't immediate, but it works. The pressure starts easing, the business stabilizes, and for the first time in months, Marcus sounds hopeful again. He thanks you repeatedly. You never tell him how easily you could have written the check. Not because you're hiding anything, because some victories need to belong to the person who earns them. And some lessons only work when people discover them themselves. Same booth, same friends. A few weeks later, it's Friday again. Same restaurant, same booth, same group. Very little has changed on the surface. The waiter still knows everyone's order. The jokes are still terrible. The conversations still drift toward work, money, and whatever is happening in the world that week. At one point, someone laughs and says, "Imagine finding out one of us is secretly a millionaire." The table laughs. Everyone starts guessing who it would be. Definitely not Marcus. Definitely not the guy with the new truck. Definitely not you. You laugh too. Then the conversation moves on. Nobody knows. And that's perfectly fine, because somewhere along the way, being known stopped mattering. The funny thing about wealth is that most people think it's a number, a target, a finish line, something you eventually arrive at. But the longer you build it, the more you realize that's not what it is. Wealth is a series of choices, small ones, often boring ones, the kind nobody notices while they're happening. A dividend payment, a tiny website, a parking space, a storage facility, a cleaning company. Individually, none of them looked important. Together, they changed everything. Not because they made you rich, because they changed the way you saw the world. Years ago, you thought success came from earning more. Today, you understand something different. Income can improve your lifestyle. Ownership can change your life. And maybe that's the real reason nobody knows you're a millionaire. Not because you're hiding money. Not because you're pretending to be someone you're not, but because you're no longer trying to convince anyone that you're successful. Most people spend years trying to look wealthy. Very few spend years building the systems that create wealth.